Welcome back.
Wait.
You're supposed to say we have a lot to talk about.
I know, I was trying to dap you up and I didn't realize you had started.
Okay.
And so when you started, I was just sitting here like this.
I'd have been like, at some point.
Okay,
Oh
okay.
my gosh.
That's funny. Okay, lock in.
I'm locked in. Welcome back. What is wrong with you?
I forgot I had a line. Okay.
We do this. We podcast,
okay.
we do
I forgot
this.
I had a line. Okay.
Yeah,
lock in,
there we
lock
go. Fuck it. Now
Okay.
just check out.
Okay, lock in.
Yes. Welcome back.
We have a lot to talk about since the last time we talked.
Indeed. If you don't know, my name is Corey.
And I'm Katie.
And we have started an IVF journey, and we are documenting that to help you all out.
Yeah, so last time we talked, how long ago was that? It was a couple weeks ago.
It was about 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
Okay. So, the last time we talked, we had heard from Corey's doctor that we needed to discuss IVF options. And so after that, we set up an appointment with my doctor. And had to wait 3 weeks for that because everything takes a long time in the medical field. So we set up that appointment, and
let's get into that, right?
How would you describe that appointment?
For sure, like this, we'll be talking about like understanding IVF, at least how we understand IVF or was told to us, some initial steps and stuff, and then the consultation period. So we'll start with consultation and then we'll get to understanding IVF.
Yeah.
So,
and I guess one thing to note that we've learned is that IVF is completely separate from any other doctor that you've seen. So
yes,
for his urologist, my gynecologist, IVF is completely separate, a different doctor and medical personnel altogether. So we started with my doctor.
Yes, her doctor, the gynecologist. And took off work, drove to... Did I take off work or did I go in later?
You went in later because
it was a morning appointment. So drove all the way out to Dallas. I say all the way out. She drives to Dallas every single day because she works there. But I work in Fort Worth and we live in Arlington. So drove out to Dallas, went to go see her gynecologist. And I think we both walked away feeling two very different ways.
Yeah.
Right? Part of me felt what you felt. And the other part felt like at least we got, where we need to go next. Why do we feel that way? At least, why do you feel that way? When we went in there, what was the expectation, or what did you think you were going to get information on?
Yeah, I think that appointment, I was just expecting to get some kind of guidance on what the best option moving forward would be, because his doctor said IVF, and then when we went to go talk to my doctor, he didn't mention IVF at all. And he was like, well, we can try IUI and do all of these things, which if you don't know, IUI is basically artificial insemination, where it's less costly, still not covered by insurance though, less costly, and is done in the gynecologist's office, and it's less invasive. So basically, when you're ovulating, they will insert the sperm directly and through a catheter. And so that's how that works. And IVF, we'll talk about that, but completely different. So I was kind of shocked that he didn't even bring up IVF,
Yeah, I mean, he definitely, I think...
And I guess understanding now, it's because he doesn't do it.
Yeah, and he would do the IUI, right? And then I also think that he was just trying to be... This was a consultation meeting, so I think we both went in understanding this, and this is important context to have. My insurance covers no fertility treatment, anything. Like if it is remotely fertility treatment, it's not getting covered. Right. By the grace of God, your insurance has this program company called
Progeny. So I am very lucky that I work for a company that completely separate from our medical insurance. We have fertility insurance called Progeny. And I think that we're in a very special situation where we have this coverage. And I know that we're so lucky because so many people don't have this option. Everybody that reached out to me and told me about options that you went through for IVF and how, like CNY, I know a lot of people will go up to like Syracuse and go through CNY for IVF. So I appreciate everyone reaching out to me with that advice. But I feel like we're in a very special situation where we have, right now my company covers Progeny covers 2 full cycles of IVF. So of course I have to meet my out-of-pocket maximum through my insurance first before it will take over. So I still will be out.
Yeah.
But
we'll detail like what the cost is kind of in a later episode. But going in with that information, knowing that like we have coverage in a sense that other people may not. There was also a conversation that maybe it's not 2 cycles, but maybe it is 2 cycles if we get in early, because there could be changes, whatever it may be. We were walking in with the context of like, we know that we're in a position to actually get IVF and it be affordable, right? So when we went in, I think that having that context and thinking, okay, we're going to get some information from my gynecologist about that, and then feeling like we didn't get that information was a little bit jarring. And it wasn't necessarily jarring about the information, but just talk about your experience a little bit. Like when you were sitting across the desk and your doctor was talking to you and kind of trying to use humor as bedside manner and stuff. Just talk about what you mentally were going through, like emotionally were going through.
Yeah, I think in that initial appointment, I had a lot of feelings because I do feel like we're not, as women, really taught about our bodies as we should be. So I feel like there's a lot of things that I don't know and didn't know. And he was kind of talking like everyone knows this. And so I kind of felt embarrassed that I didn't know. Like,
no, I feel you.
What am I missing? And the things he was saying, it's like, I know that's not true, you know? Like, he was telling me that if I wasn't ovulating every month
specifically because your period wasn't regular to the exact day.
Right.
Like your cycle wasn't an exact cycle.
An exact cycle, like 28 days every single month, or it comes on the 30th day of the cycle every single month. And I was like, I don't know anyone's that comes on the same day every single month, like the same cycle day. So that was a little jarring for me, because then he was like, well, we're going to put you on medication to force you to ovulate because your numbers were low when we did testing in January. Mind you, this appointment was in September. So I'm like, we've gone 9 months and I could have been on medication this whole time. But okay. So that was a little frustrating for me. I think that was the most frustrating part, was like, okay, why didn't we try this 9 months ago?
Yeah, I think for me, the frustrating, and I definitely get that. So I know that, like, just from being with you, one of your biggest insecurities is feeling stupid. And I'll put that in quotations. Like you have this thing where like you really want to be informed about everything, and that's not a bad thing. True. It's very great, but also it is upsetting to you when you feel like you don't know, when you're like not in the know.
When I feel blindsided by something. Right. Yeah.
Which is why you hate secrets, right? Like, okay, so we're all in there. So I understand that about you. So I know in that moment, I can understand that moment, how jarring that would be. For me, it was, I'm very much so of a package person. So I believe wholeheartedly that sometimes a message has to be delivered. Something has to be delivered. But I think the package is as important as what is being delivered. And what I mean by that is I often talk about, like, when you buy something very expensive, if it came in some Shein package, you would be mad. Like, or you would immediately discredit the thing that you bought.
Right.
Because the package is important. And I just feel like in the way that he was speaking to us, and more specifically speaking to you, I think he could have been much more empathic with his delivery.
Yeah. And I don't want to harp too much on this man,
Right.
but I do think that he was trying to use humor as a way to get his point across. And I've never been, I mean, like, I am a sensitive person, but I feel like in the fertility space, I've always kept a pretty level head about things. Like, I don't get too offended about things.
Mm-hmm.
But like that day I kind of was.
Yeah,
And
the dribble down your leg joke was
yeah. And I was like, maybe I'm being sensitive, but it's a sensitive topic. And as someone who is trained in that profession, you would think that you would approach this as sensitive. So,
and to his credit, not, well, I won't say credit, but like from his perspective, I get it. It's we're going in with this being a life-changing event for us.
for us, yeah.
There's probably 7 of us who walked into his office that day.
Yeah.
And he's been practicing for how long? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
like, to him, there's a level of desensitized, like he's desensitized to a certain level because he sees it so often. And so he really is just trying to get the hard nose, here's just the facts, here's some information, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Though I do think it's still important to have some sort of, just me personally, to have some sort of awareness of the way that you can deliver the message. So I felt like when we left that office, there was a lot of emotions, a lot of, do I feel like I got any answers that I actually wanted to get?
Yeah.
But the answer that we did get was that we need to go talk to Progeny or Dallas IVF, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, if you have the chance to use Progeny, or if your office or if your job, offers Progeny, definitely get it, because they have been great just from the first phone call that I had with them. And this is the insurance company. The first call I had with them, they were on the phone with me for 45 minutes, talking me through every single thing, talking me through cost, talking me through the pharmacies that they use, how that works, talking me through like the in-network offices that they use, talking me through several different things. And you do have to get authorization on everything. So, they gave me a list of doctors to go through. I went through Dallas IVF, or we're going through Dallas IVF. And so everything that Dallas IVF wants to do, I have to get authorization through Progeny. And so as soon as that started, I was getting phone calls from their care team, just like, hey, we're here for emotional support. We want to talk with you about your journey. What has it been like? What do you need to know going into your consultation with the IVF doctor? What do you need to know now? All of that stuff. I do need to call them back.
That's okay.
It's okay.
We'll get to it, but
so
that's, shout out to them. I would like to. I have not had the opportunity to interface with Progeny yet.
Right.
Though I have with Dallas IVF.
So yes, that leads us into, after that appointment, we were kind of like, okay, we need to take this into our own hands, and we need to decide what we want to do. And the thing with IUI, and I think why we kind of decided to not forego, IUI, is because it's a lower success rate, and also with male factor infertility, that's even lower from what I've read. So I just didn't want to have to. And another thing is that my insurance is changing at the beginning of the year, so I didn't want to
waste any time
and waste any money into IUI if we're just gonna have to end up doing IVF anyway. And with male factor infertility, I think that we felt more comfortable with IVF because it's more controlled.
Yeah, I just think it's a smarter decision on all fronts. It's covered, so it's smarter financially.
Mm-hmm.
If it has a higher success rate, then though it's gonna be much more invasive, it just makes the most sense. Like in the moment from leaving the other doctor's office, I was like, I think that the decision's kind of already made for us.
Mm-hmm.
like the green light is green on, on everything. Like if we had a checklist, it's been checked off. Like this is the way that we need to go. It just makes the most sense. Particularly if things were going to change with your insurance, then we need to go ahead and get it started now. And if we were going to end up at IVF anyway, we might as well just get to that point. So to me, it just made the most sense.
So that leads us to IVF and going through Dallas IVF and through our or I guess we can just start saying our IVF clinic. So the first thing is I called because, again, sometimes you can call these doctor's offices and you can't get in for 2 months just because they're so busy. So I called the Dallas branch. Though this office has like 5 different branches, I think, and there's several around the Metroplex, and then there's one in Tyler. And when I called the Dallas branch, and because it's like 2 miles from my office. And I told her, I prefer Dallas, but whichever I can get in the quickest, because again, I need to be in the process before the end of the year for my insurance to stay the same. So, I was able to get in the following week, which was amazing. And basically that first appointment was like
a Zoom meeting,
virtual consultation. And it was with our IVF doctor, who is just amazing, has been amazing.
It was everything that we thought the first consultation was going to be.
Is what the second one was.
Yes, it was like night and day.
And basically she just walked us through exactly, well, first she got, our background, our history with trying and all of that, and then walked us through exactly what the IVF process is going to look like and things that we would need to do to start. So,
and I mean everything. And that's where we understood, or at least got an understanding truly of what IVF is, because I thought I know kind of what it was, but she walked through every single step, allowed us to ask a lot of questions, even drew pictures. So we're going to try to do that now. Parents, tuck the kids in.
This is not going to be bad.
It's not going to be bad at all. But it is like, we're talking about the human anatomy. So this is very scientific and educational. Scientific and educational. Scientific. Is that a new word? But yeah, so we just want to know, we want to show you all what we learned so that you can be informed if you're not informed. Yeah. So the first big step at least, is hormone stimulation. They explain that the medications will help Katie's body produce multiple eggs at once. And there are injections, and these injections are a daily thing, and they'll monitor her closely during this phase.
Yeah, and the doctors will adjust the medication based on how my body responds. So they'll want to get as many good quality eggs as possible, but there's a balance to it.
And then after that comes the egg retrieval, which is exactly what it sounds like. They'll use a needle to collect the eggs directly from the ovaries.
It's outpatient, so you can go home the same day, but there might be some cramping and discomfort afterwards. I'm planning to take it easy after this step. And I've also seen an old wives' tale to eat McDonald's fries after your egg retrieval.
Okay.
Or maybe that's the implantation day, actually.
We'll figure out what it is. Once the eggs are collected, they'll mix them with the sperm in the lab, kind of like a science experiment. And when I say mix, I mean literally inject the sperm into the eggs. They'll keep an eye on the embryos as they develop over the next few days.
After the eggs have been fertilized comes the embryo transfer. The best embryo or embryos are selected to be placed back into the uterus. Then you just have to wait. This is the hardest part. You have to wait for about 2 weeks to see if it implants and results in a pregnancy.
So that's the IVF process in a nutshell. We've learned so much going through Dallas IVF, the clinic consultation, and it really helped us understand what we were going to have to go through. So I know that is so much and it's seemingly like overwhelming information. And I really wanted to get down to like, once we left that, I felt really good leaving that consultation meeting. But I also was like, how, as your husband, as your friend, how am I going to support you? Because we got a checklist. Yeah. And your checklist is like...
No, it was so funny.
90% longer than mine. I had to go do like 2 things. And you had to go do like 8, right?
Yeah, it was so funny. She gave us a checklist of things that, like, okay, we've talked about all this, what's next? And there was Caitlin to-dos, and then there was Corey to-dos. And my to-dos were like literally so
It was like a
long.
CVS receipt.
And then his to-dos were 2 things.
Yeah, it was like upload your documents and come in to get a sperm analysis. And I was like, dang, that's... So I felt in the moment as like, especially if we're talking about like, and I want to hear how you felt, but if we're talking about male factor, me having an issue that's kind of causing this, for us to even do this, it almost felt dooming to be like, damn, I really wish there was something more for me to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's almost like you're suffering for my issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I know, and we'll have this conversation, and we've had this conversation, and people out there, you might feel the same as like, yeah, just like things happen, it is what it is, or whatever. But that to me is how it felt, and how sometimes it does feel, which is that you're gonna have to go through so many of these things. You have to take the medicine, you have to take the shots, you have to get the ultrasounds, and you have to get the eggs retrieved and put back up. You know what I'm saying? You have to go, and you have to carry the baby. You have to go through so much for what feels like is my issue. And so I was just thinking to myself, like, how could I be the best husband? But I also was like how in that moment did you feel hopeful? What did you feel? Was it a myriad of emotions? Like, what were your thoughts?
Yeah. I feel like it was daunting looking at the to-do list, because that was just the first step, you know? And after hearing the entire process, I was like, oh boy, like,
Right.
this is going to be a lot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. So, I mean, it was definitely overwhelming, and I think each day is different. Like, there's some days where I feel super hopeful and super glad that we have the opportunity to even go through this. And then there's days where it feels super, like, overwhelming, and, like, I'm kind of angry that this is even the situation that we're in, you know? Because, like, we just want to be parents so bad. And I've told you since we met that my biggest fear is not being able to be a mom. And it's kind of weird that I used to say that, because, like, why did I used to say that? You know?
I mean, I think it's...
Did I manifest infertility?
No,
I'm just kidding.
But
No.
I think it is real. I think the things that we truly fear, sometimes we feel like we can, if we talk about it, we kind of get out in front of it or whatever.
Yeah.
And we have to, I don't know. I feel the same with some of my fears, you know?
Yeah.
But go ahead.
So yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's good days and there's bad days, and there's some days where it feels very overwhelming, and like the finish line is so far away. But there's other days where I feel really good and I'm just ready to get it started. And there's some days where all of those emotions will happen in the span of an hour. You know, like I feel like I go through waves of emotions every single day. And I will say that I joined an IVF support group on Facebook just to, like,
be with other people,
be in a community of people. I left it 2 days later because, one, we're still so early, and a lot of things that people were posting I didn't understand. Like, these are the grades of my eggs, and I'm like, I don't know what that means. Or, you know, seeing other people's stories where they were like, we retrieved this many eggs and this many fertilized, and, you know, or, you know, none of them became mature, and we are gonna have to go through it all again. And so it was just too much for me, and I am proud of myself for realizing that, and then actually, like,
Because older you
getting out of the group.
would have just spiraled into the information.
Right. And so I do feel like we're still so early, and there's still so much for us to learn, and there's still so much that we have to do, that I was like, I'm just gonna wait until I hear from a doctor all of these things. So yeah, so that's how I felt after the consultation. And then do you want to talk about how you felt, or you just already?
Nah, how I felt was that I feel like you're paying for, like I did something and you're paying a price for it. Like I did something and you're like going to prison. That seems like it's like, you know what I mean? Like you're taking the fall for an issue that was mine, you know?
Yeah.
So it just feels very helpless.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that they give me, they talk about is like, stay on this medicine that you're on. Okay, but that has not been working the way it's supposed to be work. Well, it's worked in other ways, but not for the way that we want it to work.
Right.
Or, hey, lose weight. So then it's like, okay, I've been doing that. I've already lost like 24 pounds since April.
Good job.
Yeah, for sure. Then I'm now on Wegovy, so I'm even starting that to try to accelerate it as well. But they're just not, it doesn't feel like it's the same. I don't have to go in to get imaging. I don't have to be poked and prodded, and I'm not laying on the table, with my legs open or nothing like that, As a matter of fact, the wildest thing, what did I text you when I went there? I was sitting down in the lobby and they were playing Usher, but what song was
Confessions.
it? Oh, they were playing Confessions. They were playing Usher Confessions. I said, this is a wild song to play at a IVF clinic. That's crazy, but
it's okay. I was on the table listening to Creed.
What song was it? Can you take
No, it was With Arms Wide Open.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah,
That's sweet. But you was the
all I could think was With Legs Wide Open, because I was just
That's funny. With legs wide open.
Yeah, that's literally all I could think about.
Right. That's a sweet song though. Cause it's by his daughter, right? Where my Creed fans at, man? Where my Creed fans at? First off, y'all hate Creed. I don't know why everybody hates Creed.
I don't think anyone hates Creed.
Oh, no, I know people who hate Creed and Nickelback. It's like them two things.
Oh.
Anyway, y'all tripping on Nickelback too.
Anyway.
Let me roll back.
Yeah.
Bring it back.
So I can talk about the next steps with what we had to do.
How was your appointment? The only thing I had to do was I had to go in, get some blood work, which was crazy, by the way, the phlebotomist. But the rest of the staff was incredible. And then I had to do another semen analysis, which sounds exactly how you would expect it to be. Yeah. We'll talk about that in another day. It would just be me, though, on how demoralizing a semen analysis feels. So go ahead.
And this is your third one. Okay, so for my next steps, we got in a week later, so the process was kind of, it's starting to speed up a little bit. So after our consultation, she was like, here's the list of next steps. Let's get you in next week. Perfect. So I go in, we do a mock embryo transfer, which essentially was just to make sure that the path to placing an embryo is clear, that when we get to that point where we're ready to implant the embryo, that there's nothing that is going to hinder that from being placed, and making sure that it's placed in the right spot. So that was like a sonogram and then placing. And then the second thing I had to do was an ultrasound to look at my uterus and my ovaries to count the follicles. And so that was kind of...
Your womb.
Yeah, my womb. And so that was kind of crazy to actually see like the follicles that she was talking about, basically like on the screen. She did have some hard time finding my left one, which she said that was normal. So did that. And then the third thing I had to do was a hysteroscopy, which is it is them taking a camera to look at the uterus and make sure that there's no polyps or like cysts or anything that are on the uterus that would harm, an embryo. We had a hiccup with that though, because we could not get the camera into the uterus. So they tried to dilate, and that was so painful. I thought I was going to throw up right there, because it was just such a sharp pain. Like, think of the worst cramp that you've ever had, and it was just like constant, and it was such a sharp pain. And typically, I mean, I had an IUD. Like, I'm used to that kind of cramping pain.
But it was like times
But
10.
it was just like constant, so it wasn't quick. It was just like, anyway. So I was trying to just like in my mind be like, this is fine, this is fine. And then finally, after the third try with dilating the uterus, they were like, we can't do this. Like, it's not happening. So, but it was kind of crazy. And I told her, because like the camera, right? So I'm inside of my body, looking at the inside of my body on a screen.
I see that thing in 4K.
And it's like it's like HD 4K. And I looked at the doctor, I was like, this is like an episode of the Magic School Bus. When they go inside of the body.
Not a hole, Keisha. A valve.
That's exactly what it was like.
Girl, that's a booty hole.
It was so crazy to see. It made me uncomfortable. I did not like it. And so then after that, we had to do a saline test, because they still needed to see the inside. They still needed to check for the polyps. So
I'll get that for you.
I then had to go into a different room, and they basically inserted saline into the uterus to check. So we got that graphing or that imaging done. And then I had to do a full lab work as well. I walk into the lab area, and I see several tubes, and I'm like, oh, dang, they must be busy today. She puts them all in a canister and walks over to me, and I was like, oh, those are all for me? And she was like, yeah. And I said, cool. 10 tubes of blood. I was like, oh my gosh.
So you woke up and passed out.
So I stood up. No, I'm just kidding. I actually felt pretty good. But she did let me know that, after looking at all that, just based on what she was seeing, that everything looked good, that she had no concerns. And so we would wait 2 weeks to get the results from because one of the things that we had to do was genetic screening. And so I think that's what takes the longest is the genetic screening. And so that takes about 2 weeks to come back. So she did say that we would schedule a follow-up appointment in 2 weeks to go over all of the images, to go over all the blood work, and talk about what's next. But she said that based off what she saw, everything looked good, that she feels like we're going to be able to get like 15 eggs, which is, I think she said eggs. I'm assuming. This is just a lot of information. And when she was telling me, it was at the end, and I was like in pain. Like in the last test with the saline, she was trying to show me on the screen. She was like, see, this is the uterus. And I'm like, I'm in so much pain at this point. I'm like, I don't care what is on that screen. Like, see what you need to see and get out.
I have seen enough.
Because also, those sonogram screens, like, please, you can point at it. I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a black abyss. I see nothing. So, anyway. So that's where we're at now. We are waiting to get all of those results back, and we'll talk about what the next steps are after that. So hopefully the next steps are starting medication and starting the process. But honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that will probably be the case. I mean, we want to say from our first episode, for everybody who has reached out, specifically to me, I mean, to you two, who has given us a bunch of wisdom, who has prayed for us, who has offered us gifts and things to help us get through. We so appreciate it. We don't take that lightly for sure. And I mean, I've just had people who just randomly, I didn't even know we were friends on Facebook, like, and they walk up to me literally like at work and they're like, I saw your video and I just want to let you know. And the greatest thing for me, at least, is that these everybody who came forward and like they talked about their story and how they've been affected or connected to somebody who had a child through IVF or whatever. So that's been super helpful for me. We super appreciate it. I'm trying to stop saying super because I feel like that's the word that everybody starts using now. It's just like everything's super now, super duper. But I think that'll be the next steps. Is we'll actually be in the throes of the cycle, or at least a part of the cycle where we're doing the medication, where I'm gonna have to help you out with some shots and get you into the office and
Yeah.
yeah.
So we'll see.
Indeed, and we'll be back. We'll talk about how we're coping with the emotions of it all. We'll document and show you all the stuff in between. And Paris says hi too. But until then, bye. Hey y'all. Oh.
Not the.
Yeah, that's the press next.
Hey, Katie and Corey and
Harry.
And come on. Now lay down. Don't be up here being distracting.